Venetian marble held memories like blood holds oxygen, and Pugh had scrubbed enough of both to know the difference. 1,147 days. That's how long she'd been invisible in Serafino Trevisan's mansion. Over 3 years of polishing silver that reflected men who decided life and death over dinner. 3 years of serving wine to mouths that ordered executions between sips. 3 years of keeping her eyes down, her hands steady, and her secret buried so deep she sometimes forgot it was killing her. 247 days of being no one, while the real Maya Pugh, the woman with a name that meant something, with a past that mattered, with a reason for being here that would destroy everything if Serafino ever learned the truth, faded like morning fog over the canals. The palazzo rose from the Grand Canal like a stone god, Renaissance beauty modernized with bulletproof glass and surveillance systems that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. She knew every blind spot in the security grid, every rotation of the guards, every secret passage built when the Doges ruled Venice. Knowledge she'd gathered not for escape, but for something far more dangerous: survival. Tonight was the reckoning. The 5 families descending on Venice to settle territorial disputes, negotiate shipment routes, and forge the kind of peace that lasted only until someone decided war was more profitable. Serafino had orchestrated this summit for months, attempting to modernize centuries of blood oaths, to build something sustainable from the ruins of tradition. Maya had watched him transform from the ruthless enforcer in her nightmares into something more terrifying still, a man with vision, with strategy, capable of mercy when it served him. She hated that somewhere in the last 1,247 days, she'd stopped seeing him as the monster and started seeing him as simply him. Maya. Sophia Ricci, the head of household staff, appeared in the kitchen doorway. The older woman's expression carried tension Maya had learned to read like weather. Signore Trevisan needs his documents brought to the North Study. Now, before the guests arrive. You know how particular he is tonight. The North Study. Maya had cleaned that room hundreds of times, but never when Serafino conducted actual business. The unwritten rule was absolute. When the door was closed, the staff became ghosts. She gathered the leather portfolio from the entry hall with practiced efficiency. Documents she wasn't supposed to notice, seals she pretended not to recognize. Through the window, she counted security personnel scattered across the grounds. 23. Usually there were 12. Something was wrong tonight. Maya climbed the servants' staircase, her footsteps silent on marble worn smooth by centuries of invisible people like her. Music and preparation sounds faded as she moved deeper into the palazzo's private wings. The corridor stretched ahead. Thick carpet runner, paintings worth more than her entire life, sconces, casting amber light across walls that had witnessed 400 years of power. Light bled from beneath the study door at the corridor's end. She knocked. 2 soft raps. Leave it. Serafino's voice carried an edge she'd learned to decode. Distraction. Anger simmering beneath control. Maya set the portfolio on the hall table and turned to leave. Every instinct screamed to disappear, to maintain the invisibility that kept her safe. But something made her pause. Through the heavy door, voices rose. Serafino and another man, younger, unfamiliar, laced with accusation. The words were muffled, but tone was a language she'd learned to speak fluently in 1,247 days. Betrayal. Rage. You think I don't see what you've done? The stranger's voice climbed toward fury. I think you've forgotten who bleeds for this family. I think you should remember who you're addressing. Serafino's response was permafrost over steel. Maya forced herself to walk away. Whatever was happening behind that door wasn't her concern. She had her own mission, her own desperate reasons for being here. Getting tangled in Serafino Trevisan's immediate crisis would only endanger the one thing, the one person she'd sacrificed 1,247 days to protect. She'd just reached the staircase when the world came apart. The explosion hurled her forward, body slamming marble hard enough to shatter breath from lungs, ears erupting in high-pitched scream. For a heartbeat, she couldn't process the transition from before to after, from existing to surviving. Fire swallowed the corridor behind her. Chandeliers fell like burning stars, crystal raining down in lethal shards. Smoke poured through shattered walls, thick and black and choking. Maya's training kicked in, the training she wasn't supposed to have, the training that proved she wasn't just a maid. She rolled onto her knees, coughing, vision swimming. Through the smoke and debris she saw them. Serafino's most trusted men, the ones who toasted his name an hour ago, fleeing down the opposite staircase without looking back. Everyone was running. Then she saw him. Serafino emerged from the ruins of his study, blood streaming from a gash on his temple, jacket torn, moving with the lethal grace of a predator even when wounded. But behind him, through the flames, Maya saw the shadow. Someone still in the wreckage. Someone with a gun. She didn't think. Thinking was for people who had choices. Maya launched herself forward into the inferno. Heat blistered her skin, smoke filled her throat, but she kept moving. Stepping between Serafino and the second explosion as it detonated, her body the only shield she had to offer. The blast threw them both against the wall. Pain erupted everywhere. But through the chaos, through the ringing in her ears and the fire licking at her uniform, she felt Serafino's arm around her, his weight leaning into her, his blood soaking her hands. She dragged him, one step, then another, through molten debris, through smoke, so thick she couldn't tell up from down. Her strength was failing, muscles screaming, but quitting wasn't an option. It had never been an option. They crashed through a service door into the night. Cool air hit her face like salvation. Maya collapsed onto the stones. Serafino sprawled beside her, both of them coughing, bleeding, alive. The palazzo behind them roared with flames, silhouettes of men scattering into the darkness like rats from a sinking ship. For a long moment, they just breathed. Then Serafino turned his head, his dark eyes that had ordered deaths, built empires, trusted no one, locked onto hers through the smoke and ash. Why you? His voice was raw, confused, searching. Maya met his gaze, her secret burning hotter than the flames behind them, knowing that everything was about to change. For the first time in Serafino Trevisan's ruthless life, he wasn't the savior. He was the saved. And the woman who'd been invisible for 1,047 days had just become the most visible person in his world. Welcome back, my great family. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that like button and tell me where you're watching from. We love seeing our little dark romance family stretch across cities, countries, and time zones. Every click, every comment, every bit of love you leave here helps us keep unraveling these dangerous love stories and high-stakes betrayals together. So find your quiet place and get ready. Let's begin. The safe house smelled of old stone and newer violence. Maya sat on the edge of a leather chair in what had once been a merchant's counting room, now stripped of everything except necessities. Reinforced windows, secure communications, weapons. Her hands trembled as she pressed gauze to the burns on her forearm, each touch sending fresh lightning through her nerves. Serafino stood across the room, silhouetted against the single lamp, while his personal physician, a skeletal man named Caruso who asked no questions, finished stitching the gash above his temple. Dried blood had turned his collar rust brown. Ash still streaked his face. But his eyes, those dark eyes that had built an empire on calculated ruthlessness, hadn't left her since they'd arrived. 15 stitches, signore, Caruso murmured, snipping thread with practiced efficiency. The concussion is mild. You were fortunate. Fortunate? Serafino's voice carried no inflection. He dismissed Caruso with a gesture, waiting until the door clicked shut before speaking again. Tell me your name. Maya's breath caught. You know my name. Maya Pugh. I've worked in your household for... I know the name on your employment record. He moved closer, each step deliberate. I know the references we verified, the background check that revealed nothing interesting. What I don't know is who teaches a maid to move like you moved tonight. She'd known this moment would come, had rehearsed a dozen lies for it, but something about the way he looked at her now, not with suspicion, exactly, but with the intensity of a man recalculating every assumption, made those lies stick in her throat. I don't understand what you assessed the blast origin in under 2 seconds. Serafino stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could smell smoke and expensive cologne and copper. You chose the optimal exit route through a burning building while men with military training ran blindly. And when the second device detonated, you positioned your body to shield my vital organs. He tilted his head. These are not instincts one learns polishing silver. Maya met his gaze, her mind racing through options. Confession would destroy everything. Denial would insult his intelligence. The truth sat between them like a knife on a table, waiting for someone to pick it up. I had training, she said finally. Before. Before what? Before I needed to disappear. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken questions. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Emergency response finally reaching the burning palazzo. Too late, as always. The old families had learned centuries ago that official help arrived only after the bleeding stopped. Serafino's jaw tightened. Who sent you into my house? No one sent me. The words came out sharper than intended. I came because I had to. Because there was nowhere else safe enough, hidden enough. Because being invisible in your world was the only way to protect... She stopped, the confession nearly escaping. Protect who? His voice dropped to something dangerous. Who are you hiding from, Maya Pugh, who isn't just Maya Pugh? She wanted to tell him. God help her. After 1,147 days of lies, she wanted to lay it all bare. But the truth was a grenade, and pulling that pin would kill more than just her. The same people who tried to kill you tonight, she whispered instead. Serafino went absolutely still. In that stillness, she saw the predator calculating, the strategist assembling pieces of a puzzle he hadn't known existed. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Then you will tell me everything. Every name, every connection, every reason you've spent 3 years scrubbing floors in my house. He leaned down until their faces were level. Because whoever wants me dead just made you the most valuable asset I have, and the most dangerous. His hand reached out, fingers closing around her wrist, not harsh, but inescapable. Her pulse hammered against his thumb. You saved my life tonight. Now you're going to help me destroy whoever took it from me. His eyes held hers. Or were you planning to disappear again? Maya felt the trap closing. Felt every carefully constructed wall crumbling. But beneath the fear, beneath the screaming voice that said run, she felt something else entirely. Relief. I can't disappear, she said quietly. Not anymore. They know I'm here now. They've always known. Serafino's expression shifted. Surprise, then understanding, then something harder. His grip on her wrist tightened fractionally. Then we have a problem, he said, because I don't let go of what's mine. And as of tonight, Maya Pugh, you belong to me. Dawn came to Venice like a bruise, purple and yellow spreading across water that reflected nothing honest. Maya hadn't slept. Neither had Serafino, though he'd finally retreated to the communications room 2 hours ago. His voice, a low murmur behind reinforced walls as he rebuilt his shattered network one encrypted call at a time. She stood at the window, watching early morning boats cut through the canals below. Somewhere across the city, the palazzo still smoldered. Somewhere in that rubble lay answers about who wanted Serafino dead. And somewhere in this safe house, she'd left her last chance at invisibility burning with the rest. The door opened without warning. Serafino entered carrying 2 espresso cups, his movements controlled despite the exhaustion carved into his features. The stitches above his temple stood out starkly against his olive skin. "You should rest," he said, extending 1 cup toward her. Maya took it, the simple domestic gesture feeling surreal after the night's violence. "So should you. I've slept less on worse nights." He moved to the opposite window, maintaining distance she suspected was calculated. "I've had 3 confirmed reports. The attack was coordinated. 4 explosive devices, military grade. Whoever planned it had detailed knowledge of the palazzo's structure." Her fingers tightened around the cup. Inside knowledge. "Yes." He turned to face her fully. "Which brings us back to you, doesn't it? You said they've always known you were there. Who are they, Maya?" She'd known this conversation would come with morning light, had spent the sleepless hours trying to determine how much truth she could afford. The problem was that partial truths were just slower-acting lies. "The Calabrese family," she said finally. "Out of Naples." Serafino's expression didn't change, but she saw the shift in his posture, the predator recognizing genuine threat. The Calabrese weren't just another crime family. They were old blood, brutal blood, the kind who still believed in vendetta that lasted generations. "What did you do to draw their attention?" "I existed." The bitterness in her voice surprised even her. "My father worked for them. When he tried to leave, they made an example of him. My mother. My—" She stopped, the word brother catching in her throat like broken glass. "You survived." "I ran. Spent 2 years moving, changing names, learning how to be no one." She met his eyes. "Until I realized being no one wasn't enough. I needed to be invisible inside something bigger than them. Somewhere they'd never look." "My house." Understanding dawned across his features. "You weren't hiding from me. You were hiding behind me." "Yes." The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. "The Trevisan name carries weight, even the Calabrese respect. Your security. Your reach. It was the perfect shadow. I thought if I stayed quiet, stayed useful, stayed invisible, they'd eventually forget I existed." Serafino set his cup down with careful precision. "But they didn't forget." "No." Maya's voice dropped to barely above whisper. 3 months ago, I saw one of their soldiers at the market. He didn't recognize me, but I knew they were circling, getting closer. I started planning to leave after the summit to vanish again before they tried to kill me and expose you in the process." His jaw clenched. "Last night wasn't just about me. They were smoking you out." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. If the attack had succeeded, if Serafino had died and his organization fractured, the ensuing chaos would have flushed Maya into the open. She'd have lost her protection, her cover, everything. "I'm sorry." The words felt inadequate. "I never meant to bring this to your door." "Sorry." Serafino laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You embedded yourself in my household for 3 years, built a cover so deep even my background checks missed it, and now one of the most vicious families in southern Italy is using me as bait to draw you out." He crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. "And you're sorry." Maya forced herself to hold his gaze. "I'll leave. Today. I'll draw them away from you." "You'll do no such thing." His hand caught her chin, tilting her face up. "Do you know what I do to people who use me, Maya?" Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Yes." Then you understand the position you're in. His thumb brushed her jawline, the gesture at odds with the danger in his voice. You've made yourself valuable and vulnerable simultaneously, a remarkable achievement. What are you going to do? Something flickered in his dark eyes, calculation mixing with something she couldn't quite name. I'm going to keep you exactly where you are. Close. Visible. Mine. He released her chin but didn't step back. Because if the Calabrese want to use you against me, they've miscalculated badly. I don't surrender what belongs to me. And as of last night, when you put your body between me and death, you became mine to protect. I'm not a possession. No, he interrupted softly. You're an investment I didn't know I'd made, and I always protect my investments. His gaze held hers with unsettling intensity. Besides, you owe me answers, and I collect all debts. The safe house had seemed secure until Maya realized it was also a cage. 2 days trapped inside stone walls with Serafino's guards stationed at every exit, watching her with the blank efficiency of men paid to see everything and question nothing. She was protected. She was prisoner. The distinction felt academic. Serafino had left that morning for what he called negotiations, a word that meant something far bloodier in his world. He'd assigned his head of security, a granite-faced man named Luca, to shadow her every movement. Even now, she felt his presence outside the bedroom door, silent as a held breath. Maya paced the narrow space, her mind cycling through scenarios. The Calabrese wouldn't stop. They never stopped. And now that she'd surfaced, now that Serafino knew enough to be dangerous but not enough to be prepared, she'd made everything worse. She should have died in that explosion. Should have let it take her instead of pulling Serafino into this generational war. But her body had moved before her mind could calculate cost, and now they were both trapped in the consequences. A sound stopped her mid-stride. Voices, muffled but heated, coming from somewhere below. She moved to the door, pressing her ear against aged wood. Don't care what protocol demands. A man's voice, unfamiliar, sharp with anger. Lower your voice. That was Luca. Cold authority. He's keeping her here like she's some kind of asset when she's clearly the reason we're all targets now. The Calabrese will burn us all to get to her. Maya's blood went cold. She eased the door open a crack, peering into the dim corridor. Below, in the entrance hall, she could see them. Luca and 2 others she recognized from the palazzo. Matteo and Rico, Serafino's inner circle. Men who'd served him for years before she'd ever set foot in Venice. The boss knows what he's doing, Luca said flatly. Does he? Matteo stepped closer, voice dropping to a hiss she had to strain to hear. Or is he thinking with something other than strategy? She's pretty. She saved his life, and now he's convinced she's worth protecting. But protection costs, Luca. And when the bill comes due, it's our blood that pays it. You suggesting we handle this ourselves? Rico's voice carried a dangerous edge. I'm suggesting we make a call. Let the Calabrese know where to find their runaway. They get what they want. We get peace. And the boss never has to know we were the ones who brokered it. Silence fell like a knife. Maya's hand found the gun she'd taken from Serafino's desk, a small .380 he probably didn't even know was missing. Her fingers wrapped around the grip, muscle memory from another life taking over. You're talking about betrayal. Luca's words were ice. I'm talking about survival, Matteo countered. The Trevisan family existed before her, and it'll exist after. One girl isn't worth... Serafino thinks she is. Luca cut him off. Which means she is. You want to question that? Do it to his face. Otherwise, shut your mouth and do your job. Matteo's laugh was ugly. You think he'll thank you when the Calabrese come through those doors? When they burn this place down around us to get to her? He turned toward the stairs. I'm done being a target for someone else's mistake. If you won't make the call, I will. Maya watched him climb toward the second floor, toward the communications room where Serafino's encrypted phone sat unguarded. Matteo was going to sell her location. Was going to gift wrap her for the Calabrese and call it loyalty. She had perhaps 5 minutes before everything collapsed. Moving on instinct honed by years of survival, Maya slipped from her room and down the servant stairs, the routes invisible people always knew existed. She reached the communications room through a side entrance just as Matteo's hand closed around the phone. Don't. Her voice stopped him cold. The gun in her hand stopped him colder. Matteo turned slowly, his expression cycling from shock to calculation to something uglier. You think threatening me helps your situation. You think Serafino will protect you when he finds out you pulled a weapon on his own men? I think you're about to commit treason. Maya kept the gun steady, aimed center mass the way she'd been taught. And I think we both know how Serafino handles traitors. The only traitor here is you. Matteo's hand inched toward his jacket. You brought death to his door. I'm trying to close it. By opening it to the Calabrese first? She stepped closer. That's not protection. That's sacrifice. And I don't plan on being anyone's offering. His hand moved fast, reaching for his own weapon. But Maya had been ready for violence since she was 16 years old, since the night she'd watched her family bleed on Calabrese orders. She didn't hesitate. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Matteo collapsed, blood spreading across marble floor that had probably witnessed 100 deaths before his. Maya stood over him, gun still raised, her hand steady even as her mind screamed at what she'd just done. The door burst open. Luca filled the frame, his own weapon drawn, his eyes taking in the scene with professional efficiency. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Luca lowered his gun. Serafino's going to want to hear about this, he said quietly. Every detail. Maya met his gaze. Then you better call him, because the traitor wasn't me. Serafino arrived like a storm given human form. Maya heard the door slam 2 floors below, heard his voice cut through the safe house with the precision of a blade, sharp questions demanding sharper answers. She sat in the communications room where Matteo's body had been removed an hour ago, though his blood still stained the marble like accusation. Luca had made the call, had told Serafino everything in clipped, efficient sentences, while Maya cleaned the gun with steady hands that refused to shake. Refused to show weakness. She'd killed before. Once, in self-defense when a Calabrese enforcer had cornered her in Madrid. But that had been survival in the dark. This was murder in Serafino's house. Using Serafino's weapon against Serafino's own man. She didn't know which way his fury would fall. The door opened. Serafino filled the frame, still in his black suit though blood spattered one sleeve. Not his own, she noted with clinical detachment. His eyes found her immediately, sweeping over her with an intensity that made her feel stripped bare. Show me your hands. Maya extended them. Steady. Clean now, though she could still feel phantom blood under her nails. Serafino crossed to her in 3 strides, his fingers closing around her wrists, turning her hands to examine them in the lamplight. Looking for tremors she refused to give him. After a long moment he released her and stepped back. Luca says Matteo was reaching for his weapon when you fired. He was calling the Calabrese first. The weapon was secondary. Maya kept her voice level. He planned to sell my location. Yours too, whether he admitted it or not. I know. Serafino's jaw tightened. Rico confirmed it before I dealt with him. The casual way he said it, dealt with him, sent ice down her spine. Rico was part of it? Rico knew and said nothing. In my organization, silence is complicity. He moved to the window, his silhouette sharp against fading daylight. I've purged 3 others who showed sympathy for Matteo's position. The rest understand the new reality. What reality is that? He turned, and the look in his eyes was something between possession and promise. That you are under my personal protection. That anyone who touches you answers to me. That betraying you is betraying me. He stepped closer. That you're not just an asset or a liability. You're mine. There was that word again. Mine. It should have felt like chains. Instead, it felt dangerously close to safety. Your men hate me, Maya said quietly. I'm the reason their brothers died last night. The reason you're at war with the Calabrese now. My men follow orders or they die. It's a simple equation. Serafino's hand reached out, fingers brushing the bruise blooming along her jawline. She hadn't even realized it was there. You killed a traitor today. That makes you more loyal than half the men who've served me for years. I killed him because he was going to kill me first. Motivation is irrelevant. Outcome is everything. His thumb traced the edge of the bruise with unexpected gentleness. Did he hurt you before you shot him? I'm fine. That wasn't what I asked. Maya met his gaze, seeing something in those dark eyes that hadn't been there before. Something that looked almost like concern beneath the calculating control. He grabbed me, I broke his grip, then I shot him. Good. Serafino's hand dropped, but he didn't step back. Starting today, you don't leave my sight. I've consolidated security here. 20 men, all personally vetted. But trust is a luxury neither of us can afford right now. You're assigning more guards? No. His voice dropped to something intimate, dangerous. I'm keeping you with me. Where I go, you go. Where I sleep, you're within earshot. The Calabrese want you dead, and my own organization just proved it has fractures. The only person I trust to keep you alive is me. Maya's breath caught. That's not protection, that's possession? He finished, something almost like dark, humor flickering across his features. I told you, Maya. You became mine the moment you put yourself between me and death. Now I'm returning the favor. He leaned closer, voice dropping to barely above whisper. And unlike you, I don't do anything halfway. When I protect something, I consume it. When I claim something, I keep it. I'm not something to be kept. No, he agreed, his eyes holding hers with unsettling intensity. You're someone who just killed for survival without hesitation. Someone who's been running for years and finally stopped running at exactly the wrong moment. Someone who saved my life and might be the only honest person in my entire world. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. So yes, Maya Pugh, who hides behind false names and polishes silver to stay invisible, I'm keeping you. Whether you want it or not. Because the Calabrese are coming, my organization is bleeding, and you're the only thing that makes sense in any of this. She should pull away, should maintain distance, should remember that Serafino Trevisan was a killer who built empires on bones, but his touch was warm, and she'd been cold for so long. They'll come for both of us now, she whispered. Let them. His voice carried absolute certainty. I've survived worse with less, and this time I know who stands beside me. His forehead touched hers. No more invisibility, Maya, no more hiding. You're in the light now, and I'm the only shadow you need. 3 nights of proximity turned the safe house into a pressure cooker. Maya learned the rhythm of Serafino's breathing when he slept, if he slept at all. Learned that he took his coffee black at dawn, that he paced when strategizing, that violence sat just beneath his carefully controlled surface like a beast waiting for permission. She also learned that wanting someone you shouldn't want was its own kind of warfare. They shared the master suite now, his orders, non-negotiable, separate beds, but the same air, the same darkness, the same suffocating awareness that every breath synchronized despite the distance between them. He worked late into the nights, phone calls in rapid Italian that painted pictures of empire rebuilding, alliances shoring up, enemies circling. And Maya pretended to sleep while cataloging every word, every inflection, every moment his control slipped just enough to show the man beneath the monster. Tonight was worse. A summer storm had rolled across Venice, thunder rattling the old windows while rain hammered stone. The power had cut an hour ago, leaving them with emergency lighting that cast everything in amber and shadow. Serafino sat at the desk, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, studying maps and manifests by candlelight. Maya watched him from the window seat, her book forgotten, her body tense with something that had nothing to do with fear. "You're staring." He didn't look up. "You're in my line of sight." "There are other directions to look." Now his eyes found hers, dark and knowing in the flickering light. "Unless you're cataloging escape routes, old habits." "I stopped planning escapes 3 days ago." The admission felt dangerous. "You made sure of that." "Did I?" He set down his pen, giving her his full attention. "Because every time I turn my back, I wonder if you'll be there when I turn around again. If you'll finally decide protection isn't worth proximity." Maya stood, moving closer without quite deciding to. "And what would you do if I ran?" "Hunt you." No hesitation. "Find you. Bring you back." His gaze traveled over her, possessive and hungry in equal measure. "But you already knew that." Arrogance. Certainty. He rose, eliminating the space between them with controlled precision. "You saved my life, Maya. That created a bond whether you intended it or not, and I don't release bonds easily." "Is that what this is?" Her voice came out rougher than intended. "A bond? What do you think it is?" Dangerous ground. Maya felt herself standing at the edge of something that would change everything, knowing she should step back, knowing she wouldn't. "I think you're used to owning things. People. Loyalty. And I think you're used to running before anyone can own you." His hand lifted, fingers grazing her jaw in that way that had become familiar. Too familiar. "But you're not running now." "Why?" "Because I'm tired. Because your protection feels like the first solid ground I've stood on in years. Because when you look at me like that, I forget all the reasons this is impossible." "Because you'll just drag me back," she said instead. "Liar." His thumb brushed her lower lip, the touch electric. "Try again." The storm chose that moment to surge, lightning bleaching the room white, thunder following so close it shook foundations. In the flash, Maya saw everything in Serafino's face. Desire, possession, and something more vulnerable beneath. Something that looked almost like need. "Because I don't want to run anymore," she whispered. His control fractured. One moment they stood in careful distance. The next his hands framed her face, his mouth claiming hers with the same ruthless certainty he brought to everything else. Maya gasped against him, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer instead of pushing away. The kiss was fire and fury, weeks of tension combusting in a heartbeat. Serafino backed her against the wall, his body pinning hers, one hand sliding into her hair while the other gripped her hip hard enough to bruise. She matched him, meeting violence with equal force, teeth catching his lower lip, nails dragging across his shoulders. This wasn't gentle, wasn't soft. It was two people who'd survived by being harder than the world around them, finally surrendering to something that felt terrifyingly like trust. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead pressed to hers. "This is a mistake," Maya managed. "Probably." His voice was gravel. "But I've built an empire on calculated risks, and you're the best gamble I've ever taken. I'm keeping secrets from you." The confession tore from somewhere deep. "Things that could destroy whatever this is." "I know." His hand tightened in her hair. "I've known since the first night. You think I didn't investigate deeper after the attack? You think I don't know there's more to your story than the Calabrese? Maya's blood went cold. Then why? Because secrets can wait. Because right now, with enemies at the gates and traitors in the house, you're the only real thing I have. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. Whatever you're hiding, Maya, we'll deal with it. Together. But first, we survive. And to survive, I need you here. With me. Not running. Not hiding. Not flinching away every time I get close. I don't know how to do this. Her voice cracked. How to be visible. How to be wanted. Then let me teach you. His mouth found hers again, softer this time, almost reverent. Let me show you what it means to be mine. The words should have terrified her. Instead, they felt like salvation. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, Maya stopped fighting the one battle she'd never been equipped to win. The one against her own desperate need to be seen, to be kept, to be worth protecting. When Serafino lifted her, carrying her to his bed instead of hers, she didn't protest. When his hands mapped her skin with possessive certainty, she surrendered. And when he whispered her name like a prayer against her throat, she finally let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd found somewhere to belong. Even if it was in the arms of a killer. Even if her secrets would eventually burn them both. Maya woke to empty sheets and the acrid smell of smoke. Not the romantic aftermath kind. The something's burning kind. She jolted upright, heart hammering, reaching for the gun on the nightstand before her mind fully engaged. Serafino stood at the window, fully dressed, a photograph curling to ash in his hand. What are you doing? Her voice came out hoarse. He didn't turn. You should have told me. Ice flooded her veins. The photograph. The one she'd hidden in the lining of her bag. The only possession she'd carried through 3 years of invisibility. The one she checked every night to make sure the face hadn't faded, that she could still remember why she survived. You went through my things. I protect what's mine. That requires knowing everything. He turned finally, and the look on his face was colder than she'd seen since the explosion. Not anger exactly. Something worse. Betrayal. Who is he, Maya? She couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the roaring in her ears. Give me the photo. Answer the question. He held up what remained, just enough to see the boy's face. Maybe 7 years old, gap-toothed smile, eyes that mirrored hers. Who is he? Maya stood, wrapping the sheet around herself like armor that wouldn't hold. His name is David. He's my brother, and he's the reason. I've spent 3 years polishing your floors. Serafino's expression shifted, pieces clicking into place with visible precision. Your brother is alive. Yes. The Calabrese have him. Yes. The word tasted like blood. They've had him since he was 5. Since the night they killed my parents. I ran, but David was too small, too slow. They took him. Raised him. And every 6 months they send proof of life. A photo. A voice recording. Just enough to keep me compliant. Compliant how? His voice went dangerously soft. This was it. The grenade pin, finally pulled. They told me if I ever resurfaced, if I ever tried to find him or went to authorities, they'd kill him. So I disappeared. Became no one. Until 2 years ago, when they gave me a choice. Serafino waited. Predator still. They said if I got close to you, if I fed them information about your operations, your security, your weaknesses, they'd let David go. Return him to me. Maya's laugh was broken glass. I said no. I refused to betray you. That's when I realized. Being in your house wasn't just about hiding. It was about being somewhere they couldn't touch David without consequences. The Calabrese hate you, but they fear you more. As long as I was under your roof, They couldn't risk killing him because it meant losing their leverage. So you've been playing both sides. Not a question, a statement carved in ice. No. She stepped toward him. I've been playing neither. I never gave them anything, never contacted them, never betrayed you. I just existed in the space between their threats and your protection. Until the explosion forced your hand. Yes. Maya's chest felt like it was caving in. Once I saved you, once I became visible, they knew. They knew I'd chosen you over their demands, and now? Now David is forfeit. Serafino's jaw clenched. They'll kill him to punish you. Unless I give them what they want. She met his eyes, hers burning. Me. They want me, Serafino. They always have. David was just the chain to drag me back. If I turn myself over, if I let them... No. The word was absolute. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. He closed the distance between them, his hands gripping her shoulders. You think sacrificing yourself saves your brother. But the Calabrese don't honor deals. They'll take you, kill you slowly, and murder David anyway because loose ends are liabilities. Then what do I do? The desperation in her voice was raw. He's 8 years old. He's been their prisoner for 3 years because of me. Because I survived when I should have died with my parents. You survive because you're a fighter. Serafino's grip tightened. And now you fight smarter. With resources. With me. Maya stared at him. Why would you help? This isn't your war. You made it my war the moment you saved my life. His eyes burned with something fierce. You think I don't understand family? I built my empire to protect my blood. Your brother is 8 years old, held by animals who traffic in suffering. That's not leverage. That's an atrocity. Serafino. I knew. The confession stopped her cold. Not about David specifically, but I knew you were hiding something bigger than just running from the Calabrese. I had my people digging while you slept. Found the gaps in your story, the inconsistencies. I was going to confront you today. And now, his hand cupped her face, thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. Now I know what you've been carrying, and I'm going to help you get him back. Why? The word broke. Why would you risk your organization, your life, for a child you've never met? Because you risked yours for me. His forehead touched hers. Because in 3 years of watching, you never once put my people in danger to save your brother. Because you chose honor over blood, and that's rarer than you know. His voice dropped. And because I'm falling for you, Maya Pugh, and I won't let the Calabrese take anything else from you. The words hung between them, terrifying and perfect. He might already be dead, Maya whispered. Then we make them pay. Serafino's promise was stone. But we find out first. I have contacts in Naples, people who owe me enough to risk looking. We'll get intelligence, build a plan, and extract your brother before the Calabrese realize we're moving. And if it's a trap? Then we spring it together. He pulled her against him, his arms solid around her shaking frame. No more secrets, Maya. No more carrying this alone. You're mine, which means your brother is under my protection too. The Calabrese wanted war when they bombed my house. Now they're going to learn what war with the Trevisan family actually costs. Maya buried her face in his chest, letting herself break for just a moment. Letting herself believe that maybe, finally, she wasn't alone. Thank you, she breathed. Don't thank me yet. His voice carried dark promise. Thank me when David is safe, and the Calabrese are burning. Until then, we plan, we prepare, and we show them what happens when they threaten what's mine. The intelligence came through at midnight, a location in Naples, an old textile warehouse the Calabrese used for special holdings. Serafino's contact swore David was there, guarded by only 3 men. Too easy, Maya thought, But desperation made people stupid, and she'd been desperate for 3 years. They took 6 men. Luca drove, his face carved from granite as always. Serafino sat beside Maya in the back, checking his weapon with mechanical precision. She'd insisted on coming. He'd argued for 30 seconds before recognizing the futility. David was her blood. She would see this through, or die trying. "When we're inside," Serafino said quietly, "you stay behind me. No heroics. Like the palace?" She met his eyes. "When I threw myself between you and death?" His jaw tightened. "Exactly like that. Which is why you follow my lead tonight. I can't extract your brother if I'm protecting you from your own courage." She wanted to argue, didn't. He was right, and they both knew it. The warehouse squatted in Naples' industrial district like a tumor, surrounded by abandoned factories and streets too dark for cameras. Luca cut the engine 3 blocks away. They approached on foot, 6 shadows moving through deeper shadows. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs, her training at war with her terror. David was inside. Her baby brother, who'd been 5 when she'd last held him, who was 8 now and probably didn't remember her face. Serafino's hand found hers. Squeezed once. Then he was moving, hand signals directing his men to positions. The entry was textbook. Luca disabled the lock. 2 men swept inside, silence holding for 3 perfect seconds. Then gunfire erupted like the world ending. Maya dove behind a concrete pillar as bullets chewed through metal. Not 3 guards, dozens. Muzzle flashes lit the warehouse interior like strobe lights, revealing shipping containers, catwalks, and men positioned with military precision. This wasn't a holding facility. This was a kill box. "Fall back." Serafino's voice cut through chaos, but falling back meant leaving David, meant admitting defeat, meant. She saw him. Through the smoke and violence on a catwalk 20 feet up. A small figure, hands bound, flanked by 2 Calabrese soldiers. David. Older, thinner, terrified, but alive. "Maya, move." Serafino grabbed her arm, dragging her toward the exit as his men laid covering fire. "He's here." She fought his grip. "David's here. I can see him." "It's a trap." He yanked her behind cover as bullets sparked off concrete where she'd stood. "They wanted you to see him, wanted you to do exactly what you're doing." "I don't care." She broke free, sprinting toward the stairs. Tactical suicide. She knew it even as her legs pumped, even as bullets whined past her head. David saw her, his eyes widening in recognition that broke her heart and put it back together simultaneously. "Maya." His voice, small and scared and real. She hit the stairs, made it 4 steps before the Calabrese soldier emerged from the shadows, his knife finding her ribs with surgical precision. Pain exploded white-hot. Maya gasped, her momentum carrying her forward even as her body tried to shut down. She crashed into the soldier, both of them tumbling, her training overriding agony as she twisted the knife free and drove it into his throat. But the damage was done. She felt blood, too much blood, soaking her shirt. Serafino's roar split the air. He moved like violence given form, cutting through Calabrese soldiers with ruthless efficiency. Maya tried to stand, her legs refusing orders. The warehouse tilted sideways. Through dimming vision, she saw Serafino reach David, saw him scoop the boy up with one arm while firing with the other, saw him fight his way back toward her. "Stay with me." His face filled her vision, streaked with blood and fury. "Maya, stay with me." "David," she managed. "Keep him safe." "I'm keeping you both safe." He pressed his hand against her ribs, trying to staunch bleeding that wouldn't stop. "Luca, we need extraction now." The next minutes blurred. Movement, pain, gunfire fading. She was in Luca's car, Serafino holding her while David cried against his shoulder. The boy she'd sacrificed everything to protect. Finally free, finally safe, and she was bleeding out before she could even tell him she was sorry. "You're not dying." Serafino's voice was command and prayer. "You hear me? You saved my life. You saved your brother. You don't get to die now." "Didn't ask permission." Her words slurred. "You never do." His hand cupped her face. "Which is why I'm falling in love with you. Which is why you have to survive. Because David needs you. Because I need you." She tried to answer. Darkness pulled her under instead. The last thing she felt was Serafino's arms, holding her like she was something precious, something worth saving, something loved. Maya woke to sterile white and the steady beep of machines. Hospital, private room. Armed guards outside the door. She could sense them even before full consciousness returned. Her ribs screamed protest when she tried to move, surgical tape pulling at skin. "Don't." A small voice, uncertain. "The doctor said you have to stay still." She turned her head. David sat in the chair beside her bed, too thin, wearing clothes clearly borrowed, his eyes, her eyes, watching her with cautious hope. 8 years old, 3 years stolen, but alive. "Hey, baby brother." Her voice cracked, his face crumpled. "You came for me. You actually came." "Always." She reached out despite the pain, and he took her hand like it was a lifeline. "I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry I couldn't." "Serafino said you've been protecting me, that you stayed close to him so the bad men wouldn't hurt me." David's grip tightened. "Is that true?" "Yes." "Then you're the bravest person I know." Tears tracked down his thin face. "I thought you forgot about me." "Never." Maya pulled him closer, ignoring her body's protests, wrapping her arms around the brother she'd thought lost forever. Not for a single day. The door opened. Serafino entered, and the change in him stopped her breath. He wore fresh blood, not his own, like other men wore cologne. His knuckles were split, his suit jacket abandoned, his eyes carrying the flat darkness of someone who'd just committed calculated violence. "You're awake." Relief flickered across his features before the mask returned. "Good. The doctor said the knife missed anything vital, but you lost significant blood." "How long?" 18 hours. He moved to the window, and she noticed the tension in his shoulders, the coiled violence not quite discharged. "David hasn't left your side. Neither have I, except when you were hunting." She knew that look. Had seen it before he'd purged the traitors from his house. The Calabrese set that ambush. Someone gave them our timeline, our route, our numbers. His voice was permafrost. "Someone inside my organization. Again." David tensed against her. Serafino noticed, his expression softening fractionally. "David, would you ask Luca to bring your sister some water? He's just outside." The boy hesitated, looking to Maya for permission. She nodded. When the door closed behind him, Serafino's mask dropped entirely. "It was Antonio," he said quietly. "My cousin. Second in command, family." Maya's breath caught. Not just another soldier, blood. The kind of betrayal that broke empires. He'd been feeding intelligence to the Calabrese for 6 months. The palace bombing, the ambush last night, all coordinated through him. Serafino's hand clenched. He thought he was positioning himself to take over after I died. Thought loyalty was weakness and power was everything. Thought? Past tense. No emotion, just fact. I gave him the chance to explain. He laughed. Said you'd made me soft, that protecting a woman and her bastard brother proved I'd lost the edge that built this empire. Serafino finally looked at her. He died understanding how wrong he was. Maya should feel horror, should feel something other than grim satisfaction. But Antonio had orchestrated the explosion that nearly killed Serafino, had set the trap that put a knife in her ribs, had endangered an 8-year-old child for profit. Some deaths were earned. How many others? 4 confirmed conspirators, all dealt with. He moved to her bedside, his hand finding hers, careful around the IV. I've restructured the entire organization. Anyone whose loyalty is questionable has been removed. Permanently, when necessary. What remains is solid. At what cost? Less than you'd think. His thumb traced her knuckles. Turns out when you execute traitors publicly, it motivates clarity. The ranks know now. Betraying me means death. But protecting what's mine means protection in return. His eyes held hers. You and David fall firmly in the latter category. We're not part of your organization. No. His hand tightened. You're part of me. Which is more dangerous for my enemies and safer for you. He leaned closer. The Calabrese leadership received a message this morning. Photos of Antonio and the conspirators, and a simple statement. Anyone who touches Maya Pugh or her brother answers to the Trevisan family, not as business, as blood. You claimed us. I'm protecting you. His voice roughened. When I saw that knife in your ribs, when I thought I might lose you. He stopped, jaw clenching. I've built my life on control, on never caring about anything enough to make it a weakness. And then you threw yourself in front of death for me. Twice. Once at the palace. Once in that warehouse when you ran toward your brother despite the bullets. Serafino? You asked me once why I'd risk everything for a child I'd never met. His forehead touched hers. Because watching you nearly die to save him showed me what real loyalty looks like. Not bought, not coerced, given freely despite the cost. His voice dropped to whisper. You love fiercely, Maya. And I want that. Want you. Want to be the person you throw yourself in front of death for. Not because you have to, but because you choose to. You already are. His kiss was gentle despite the violence still clinging to him. When he pulled back, his eyes searched hers. The Calabrese are broken. Their leadership is in disarray, their alliance with Antonio exposed. They'll retaliate eventually, but not soon. Not while they're scrambling to survive. So what now? Now you heal. David adjusts. And I rebuild around the two of you. He brushed hair from her face. I'm not asking you to love me, Maya. I know trust takes time, especially after everything. But I'm asking you to stay, to let me protect you both. To give me the chance to prove that loyalty runs both ways. The door opened. David returned with Luca, who carried water and wore the closest thing to a smile she'd ever seen on his granite face. The boy wanted snacks too, Luca said gruffly. I told him hospitals don't stock proper food. David clutched a bag of chips like treasure. He bought me 3 kinds. Maya laughed, then winced at the pain. But the warmth spreading through her chest had nothing to do with injury, and everything to do with the 3 males in this room. One she'd saved, one she'd protected, one who'd protected her. Family. Not by blood or obligation, but by choice. By love. 6 weeks later, Maya stood on the palazzo's restored terrace, watching sunset paint Venice in shades of gold and crimson. The explosion damage had been repaired with meticulous care, new marble, reinforced security, but the same ancient bones. Like her, she thought, scarred but standing, different but whole. You're brooding again. David appeared at her elbow, taller already from regular meals and safety. He'd started smiling 3 weeks ago, started laughing 2 weeks after that. Started calling Serafino by name instead of Sir just yesterday. Thinking, she corrected. There's a difference. Serafino says thinking too much is dangerous. He grinned, gap-toothed smile returning. He also says you do it anyway because you're stubborn. He's not wrong. She ruffled his hair, the gesture still miraculous after 3 years of only photographs. Shouldn't you be at your lesson? Finished early, Professor Dante says I'm smart. Pride colored his voice. Like you. Her throat tightened. Serafino had hired tutors, enrolled David in a private academy for next term, given him a future beyond fear. Given them both something neither had dared imagine, a life beyond survival. Maya. Serafino's voice carried across the terrace. He emerged from the palazzo wearing casual elegance, the ruthless mafia boss replaced by something softer, almost domestic. The stitches above his temple had healed to a thin scar she'd traced with her fingers just that morning. David straightened. I'll be in the library. Luca promised to teach me chess. Luca promised? Maya raised an eyebrow. He likes me? David shrugged, then darted inside before she could respond. Serafino joined her at the balustrade, his arm sliding around her waist with casual possession that still made her pulse quicken. He's not wrong. Luca does like him. Bought him ice cream yesterday, 3 flavors. You're all spoiling him. He's earned it. His hand tightened. As have you. Maya leaned into his warmth, the gesture still new enough to feel revolutionary. 6 weeks of healing, of David's nightmares gradually fading, of learning to live visible, protected, chosen. 6 weeks of Serafino proving that loyalty for him meant action. I have something for you. He produced a small leather box. Her heart stuttered. Serafino. Not what you think. Amusement flickered in his dark eyes. Open it. Inside lay a key. Old brass, ornate, clearly Venetian. She looked at him, questioning. The palazzo, he said quietly. Your name is on the deed now. Alongside mine. You and David both. At her stunned silence, he continued. You've spent 3 years being invisible, Maya. Being no one. Having nothing that couldn't be taken. His hand cupped her face. I want you to have something that can't be taken. A home. Security. Proof that you belong somewhere. With someone. This is too much. It's not enough. He cut her off. You saved my life twice. Saved your brother. Killed for me. Nearly died for me. A key is the least of what you deserve. I don't know how to accept this. Her voice cracked. How to believe I'm worth it. Then let me believe for both of us. He turned her to face him fully. For 3 years, you thought your value was in service, in invisibility, in sacrifice. But I see you, Maya. I see someone who fights with everything she has for the people she loves, someone loyal beyond reason, someone who looked at the most dangerous man in Venice and chose to protect him anyway. You're not the most dangerous man in Venice. I'm absolutely the most dangerous man in Venice. His smile was sharp. But not to you. Never to you. He kissed her forehead. You asked me once what this was between us. If it was just protection, possession. And it's love. Simple. Absolute. The kind that doesn't flinch. The kind that stands between you and bullets. The kind you showed me existed when you shielded me with your own body. His eyes held hers. I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. David needs stability. You need time to adjust to visibility. But I'm asking you to stay. To build this life with me. To let me love you the way you deserve. Fiercely, protectively, without reservation. Maya felt tears slip free. I don't deserve you. You deserve everything. His thumb wiped her tears. And I'm going to spend however long it takes proving that to you. You, who spent 1,047 days invisible, because you thought your life only mattered if it served others. You, who believed sacrifice was your only value. He pulled her close. I choose you, Maya Pugh, not for what you can do for me, but for who you are. Stubborn, brave, beautiful, broken in all the ways that matter. I choose you. The words shattered something in her chest, rebuilt it stronger. I choose you too. Her voice steadied. I've been choosing you since the moment I threw myself between you and death. I just didn't know I was allowed to. You're allowed. His kiss was promise and proof. You're allowed to be seen, to be loved, to be protected instead of always protecting, to take up space in this world without apology. She kissed him back, pouring 3 years of hidden longing into it. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she whispered, "Teach me." "Teach you what?" "How to be yours. How to be visible. How to believe I'm worth keeping." Every day. His forehead touched hers. "For the rest of our lives. If you'll let me." From inside, David's laugh echoed, young and free and safe. Luca's gruff voice followed, something about illegal chess moves. Normal sounds. Family sounds. Home sounds. Maya looked at the key in her hand, at the palazzo behind them, at the man who'd seen through her invisibility to the woman beneath, who'd fought for her brother, who'd claimed her not as possession but as equal. "The rest of our lives," she agreed, "starting now." Serafino smiled, genuine, unguarded, the expression reserved only for her. "Then welcome home, Maya. Welcome to being chosen. Welcome to being loved." And for the first time in 3 years, in her entire life maybe, Maya Pugh believed she was exactly where she belonged. Not invisible, not running, not sacrificing herself to earn value she'd always possessed. Just loved. Just home. Just finally, beautifully, free.